He played a werewolf, the Mummy, Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, Quasimodo, even Fu Manchu. However, he never played John Belushi. Probably should have. Paul Naschy on this episode of Attack of the Killer Podcast.
Attention planet Earth and beyond. Stay tuned for Attack of the Killer Podcast. 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 Yay.
What?
Hello and welcome to Naschy Cast. Wait, sorry, wrong show.
We're going to get sued by Rod and Troy.
Sorry, I got a little confused. This is Attack of the Killer Podcast. Just got confused there for a second because this episode, number 320, we are talking about Paul Naschy, or as I like to call it, keeping Brian off the ledge after the Tubi episode. I am your host, Insane Mike, and if you haven't heard of our show before, Attack of the Killer Podcast is a horror movie podcast where a group of friends get together with a topic and we discuss films within that topic. We talk openly and freely, so there's probably going to be spoilers. Now, before I get any further, I do have an announcement. If you are wondering what's new with Attack of the Killer Podcast, well, on Saturday the 31st, we will be at the Capitol Theater in Burlington for a special screening of The Blob. Our podcast network, the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, is hosting a screening of the 1988 Blob film, followed by a live podcast recording featuring us, Attack of the Killer Podcast, as well as the I Like It Spooky Horror Podcast, and on top of that, Brett and Tony with Ash and Abe. Now, the screening is sponsored by Dame Fine Coffee, so be sure to be at the Capitol Theater on the 31st at 7 p.m. for this once-in-a-lifetime screening of the 1988 version of The Blob.
Only $5.
Yep, there you go. There you go. Now, if you like our show, it would be really nifty if you showed your love and support by joining our Patreon. When you donate to our show, you become part of the Attack of the Killer Podcast family that we call the Attackers. As an attacker, you get all kinds of perks, goodies, and content. Everything from bonus episodes to YouTube shows, exclusive invites to our monthly horror hangout, original art called Mikey's Monster. You can even get your own membership card, certificate, and sticker. You can pick a movie for our Patreon episodes and watch parties. You can even get shout-outs on our website and on the show, just like these attackers right here.
Timothy Lenner, Roman Doppelfeld, Larry Watanabe, Brett J. Royer, Seth Key, Jessica Irish, Chris Cook, Brian Godsell, Stephen Sitter, Brandy Moore, Andrew Mahler, Rod Hutchinson, Carmen DeHague, Abraham Ariano, Andrew Bentler, Casey Kelderman, Tony Miller, Mike Clayton, Rose Talashoma, Abe Kirshner, Lisa Cavalier, Holly Berg, Bill Fisher, Emily Randolph, and Greg Dedrick.
You, too, can join the Attack of the Killer Podcast family. Just go to jointheattackers.com, pick the tier that best suits you, and become an attacker today. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, it's time to introduce you to the podcast crew. He's currently like a kid in a candy store, Brian.
Hello, everybody.
He saw a magic act while in Spain. The magician was going to disappear on the count of 3. He said, uno, dos, but then vanished without a trace. Jason.
Oh, my Lord. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We're happy you're here.
He met his wife on a business trip to Spain, and he said to her, what are you doing here? Tad.
Hi, guys. I don't get it.
Hey, buddy.
Because you met her on a business trip to Spain.
Ah.
You didn't meet her. You met her.
Okay.
And now, speaking of Tad, here is what we watched.
All right. Just going to go straight to you, Brian. What have you watched?
I watched The Warrior and the Blind Swordsman, the first 2 of 3 Warrior movies from the new box set from Mondo Macabro. They're sort of Indonesian black magic Braveheart by way of Ricky O.
Okay, yeah.
I thought that was
They're-
the title. Warrior, and
I thought he was having a stroke.
I know I wasn't sure.
No, the first one is the Warrior. The second one is the Warrior and the Blind Swordsman. The third one is the Warrior and the Ninja, but I haven't watched that yet. But the first two are absolutely fantastic. In going through my box sets of the Naschy films for tonight's episode, the ones that Screen Factory put out, I realized there was one on there that I somehow overlooked and hadn't watched yet. So I was all excited because I got to watch a new-to-me Paul Naschy movie. I watched The Devil's Possessed, which was kind of him doing Gilles de Rais, which also is kind of one of the movies tonight, but with no supernatural shenanigans. The Devil's Possessed is more just a straightforward medieval times, after the Crusades, comes home, tries to... I don't know. He does awful things to peasants in the name of Satan, but he's being manipulated by other people behind the scenes. And it's lots of gore and a little bit of nudity and lots of Paul Naschy facial hair. It's great. And then finally, I watched Exuma, which is on Shudder. It's a South Korean horror movie from earlier this year, and it's hands down the best new 2024 horror movie I've seen. Like, nothing else even comes close. It's absolutely fantastic. So if you have Shudder, definitely check out Exuma. It's about these people who are they're hired to move a grave because of bad feng shui, but something's kind of fishy about the grave, and the more they dig up and the more they dig into the past, the more they find out that what's buried there isn't just some guy. It's something much, much worse, and it was not happy about being dug up. So check that one out for sure.
Excellent. Do you watch anything else?
I mean, some TV shows and stuff, but that's about it for movies.
All right. Well, Jason, what did you watch?
Deadpool.
Oh yeah, I forgot
And
about
Wolverine.
that. Watch that too.
You yet, Tad?
No.
Oh, we still can't talk
come
about it.
on.
You should have saw Mike's face.
Damn
was
it. I was
so
ready
sad.
to go.
You want me to
Next
turn
time.
off my earbuds and then you guys talk and then
No.
do
Because you'll hear it when you listen to the episode later.
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, skipping that. It was fantastic. Got Tiffany's a little bit of education, and we watched the 1986 classic, The Transformers: the movie. That's right.
The greatest animated film of all time.
That's
That-
bold, and I like it.
That's probably true.
He's onto something there. I walked in. Tiffany had just started this other movie. I was like, I honestly thought it was one of her like pretty people TV shows that she guilty pleasure watches, and I really thought it was that. And then like people started getting killed and stuff, and I'm like, okay, I'm watching.
Maybe I need
I'm
to watch
watching
more
this.
Pretty People TV shows.
No, that's not it. But it ended up being The Strangers, Chapter 1.
Oh.
That's right. And it was, well, the thing is, I think I had problems with it, but
Well, I saw your rating on Letterboxd,
yeah.
so I wasn't expecting a good review.
It was one of those that it was fucking shot beautifully. So it lured me and it had me, but I didn't like it. It was, I don't know. I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. And the shittiest part, I don't know how to,
That's fine.
I don't want to.
That's fine. It's just if anybody I want
know.
to hear say bad things about it, it'd be you because you like the first
Oh, I
two.
love the first two.
And I know that even the second one is decisive. You know, is like is a thing of controversy. amongst
Divisive,
horror
yeah.
fa-
Which
amongst
was
horror
fun
fans.
trying to explain to Tiffany. I'm like, chapter 1, well, part 2, well, actually, this is a prequel. And then, like, but I thought you already saw part 1. This isn't part 1. It's just chapter 1. I'm like, no, this is different. And it was just a who's on first for like 5 minutes. It was really fun.
Were they able to do it in a way that it wasn't just here's the first movie again? Or is that why you didn't like it?
No, they really didn't.
Okay, because that was my concern. Is like, okay, well, I love the first one. I thought the second one was good for about the first third, and then completely fell apart. I couldn't see how they would do the first chapter without either explaining why those people do what they do, which completely removes anything that makes them scary. Or just doing the exact same fucking movie again, or both, which is even worse.
I mean, it's different as far as the setup. It's not your house. It's a cabin in the woods thing, and they cars breaking down, whatever, end up in this place they weren't necessarily going to be at. So but that's just setup stuff.
There? Yeah.
But then the rest of the original movie happened, basically, and they literally lean over, why are you doing this? Because you were here. They say the line, or whatever. Instead of because you were home, they say because you were here. But anyway.
So if no one showed up, would they have...
No. This movie wouldn't have happened.
They would have just been sitting out there toasting marshmallows going, this was a terrible camping trip, guys.
Hoping somebody shows up. Yeah. Why are we still wearing the masks?
But like I said, oh my God, it was shot beautifully. The kills were really good. And it got done. I didn't even realize that there was a 3-part or thing coming up, chapter 1, 2, and 3 coming up.
2 and 3, yeah.
And that's when I realized who directed this fucking movie. And I'm like, well, that explains why it's visually beautiful. But I was really happy to see the director was back doing something. Rennie Harlan.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
All 3 of them, yeah.
All 3. He's doing all 3.
Wow.
He already did all 3. They filmed them already.
So like
back to back?
So then I was like, maybe I'm back in to see what happens in 2 and 3. If it's I don't know.
So did anyone get surprise eaten by a shark?
I don't want to spoil things for you, Brian. But so has anyone else seen this one?
I'm just like I'm very curious to see it because it's such a simple premise.
Yep.
Yeah.
That you
how can you screw it up?
Right, but also like Brian said, you did such a bang up job the first time. Why go back and try to redo it again? Just make the strangers go to a different house. I don't know.
Right, because it's a concept that could just fucking sequel forever and never
like The
repeat
Purge.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be different dudes in the same mask, whatever. And
I have not heard one positive thing, and I'm like, the trailer looked decent. It looks like it's a high production value, and I like the director. Like, what's going on? And no one has been able to really articulate why they hate it. They just do, and I'm like, is it just?
That's what stresses me out.
Yeah, I don't think it's hateable. It's just that it wasn't. I don't want to say
a lesser version of the first movie.
Yes, I didn't want to say it's not nothing new because I kind of hate that, but
I know you do. That's why I was going to call you out on it, but
I didn't say that. So like,
you let me do it. That's fine.
Yeah, happily. But yeah. But then once I saw that at the end, I was like, well, I do love that director. It colored it a little more to maybe I'd finish, or at least
see it through.
See it through. Because again, it wasn't bad. It was The Strangers again.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just when you talk about it being nothing new, that doesn't always things don't have to be something new, but when you have such a slender premise as The Strangers is based around, how do you keep doing it without just making the same fucking movie over and over again?
Because people remake shit every 15 years anyway.
Well, right, but like the option is either that or explain things, which makes them not scary.
Yep.
Yeah, which
like sometimes it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to not have a franchise. Sometimes you can just make one good movie and be happy with it, and then go do something else.
But money.
Yeah.
No faith in the general public of seeing something.
The root of all boredom.
I know. Well, go ahead, Ted.
I was just going to say, I think this bombed really hard at the box office. So, but now they're stuck because they filmed all 3 of them.
Films, yeah.
And they were supposed to do, I think they were supposed to be like the Fear Street movies, but in theaters where they're all 3 going to come out in 24. And now I think they're like, what do we fucking do? We shot these 2 movies to a box office failure, so I don't know if they're just going to go straight to streaming or no one's heard or seen anything, but we know they're done.
Interesting.
Well, keep us up to date on that.
Well, I would think if they shot them back to back like that, and Rennie Harlan, other than that Cutthroat Island movie, has always been pretty good of working with lower budgets, that they could
probably did all 3 with the budget of one movie.
Yeah, they could still they could still recoup their loss with.
I didn't look into any of that, but
sure, yeah, of course not. But
I think they just sort of like, we have this name that's enough, this franchise IP that we can use, and the first one came out and the reviews are so bad. Like, we live in a time now where, unfortunately, like, Rotten Tomatoes determines if people are going to go to a theater or not. They already have their mind made up, so it's like, well, by the Thursday before it comes out, the scores come out. Oh, critics hated it. I'm staying home.
ugh, hate it.
Yeah.
Well, let me move to my last one and favorite one that I watched. Pretty excited to have caught the new M. Night Shyamalan movie in the theater, Trap.
yay!
Starring Josh Hartnett. Gosh, he's dreamy, right? There's a whistle there. I heard it. Yeah, it was fantastic. I loved it. I felt like, I mean, if you can watch it in the theater, do, or have a badass sound system at home, because it takes place mostly in
it's
arena.
A concert film.
It's a concert.
Right?
It's a concert film. So, the sound team did a great job of capturing that and making it, and it doesn't suffer from any like, oh, it's only shot in this corner so you can't see the crowd. There's so many fucking crowd shots. It's like, did they just employ thousands of people every day? It's like they did a good job. I mean, they go out into the hall and all that stuff all the time.
Sure.
But it was fun. It was funny. It was goofy. It was the way it unfolded was wonderful, just as you'd expect. And so, obviously, I'm biased as a very big fan of all of his films, but
Yep.
I loved it, man. It was so good. I really loved it.
Awesome.
And you guys
Pretty
get to see
funny.
it?
No, I don't think. Did anybody else?
No.
I
I just had a sort of funny story to tell. A friend who's like very casual into horror texted me to ask, oh, have you seen Trap yet? And I was like, no, I haven't even seen like his last movie before this, which was old, right? I think that was his.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, well, did you see The Watchers? And I said,
Wasn't
no.
Knock at the Cabin before this?
Oh, yeah, Knock
yeah,
at the
yeah,
Cabin.
yeah.
And I was like, well, I haven't seen Old, but, I was like, I just, I haven't, I probably won't make it to theaters to see it. But he was like, oh, well, then you didn't see Watchers? And I'm like, I think that's his daughter that directed that. He's like, oh, I just saw Shyamalan. Like, I just assumed it was him. And I'm like, well, that's the twist. His daughter directed it. I thought it was pretty good.
You just wouldn't let me get through a M. Night talk without saying that word.
Saying the T word?
Just couldn't fucking do it. I guess I made you say the other thing, so God damn it. But it's great. That's what I watched.
Mike, how about you?
Okay, so I've only watched one thing really new since the last episode. I watched Stop Motion on Shudder. It's a new film out this year about this woman who is making this stop motion feature film. It's like her big epic film she's making.
Life's work.
But yeah, her life's work, and she's old. She can't really do a whole lot of the animation anymore, so she's using her daughter to help, and then the mother dies, but the daughter takes over to complete the film, and she kind of goes a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So I mainly watched it just because it dealt with making a stop motion film, and so there's some. I will take stop motion wherever I can get it. So there was a lot of cool scenes of stop motion, and then when she is getting kind of delusional and stuff, there's a lot of stop motion that happens around her, especially towards the end. And the ending's great. It does drag on a little bit in the beginning and in the middle, but yeah, that was cool. And then I think I brought it up last time that I was. I'll bring this up. 'Cause it feels like this is the only other thing I've really been watching of late. Is that I've been educating Simon on cinema, and we've been marathoning the Tarantino films. So we're finally done. We've gotten through them all.
Did it.
Yep.
Congrats.
And we even last night watched True Romance.
Has he become a hitman yet?
No, not yet. Not yet. So I just want to. I'm gonna put it. So every time we'd watch one, then I'd have him rate where that one lands with what he'd seen so far. Yeah. So I have his final ranking here that I was going to share with you guys.
Hell yeah.
First of all, any guesses at my 16-year-old child what his number one Tarantino film would be?
Well, last time it was Reservoir Dogs, so I'm guessing that stayed on top of the pack.
Yes, Reservoir Dogs stayed. I guess I should have asked.
All downhill, that guy.
Yeah. Well, for me too, Reservoir Dogs is still my fave. I guess I should have asked because Reservoir Dogs is number one. But the one that shocked me the most was number two. So let me ask you that then. Can you guess what number two would be?
Django.
That's a good guess.
It's a great guess, actually.
I don't like that movie.
You don't like Django and Django?
What?
Oh, I hate
Oh,
it.
interesting.
Anyway, we're not talking about me. We're talking about Simon.
Inglorious Bastards was his
Whoa.
number two.
Fuck yeah.
I
I mean,
was
a lot of
kinda
people
shocked.
consider it his best, so.
Yeah, Simon loves Nazis.
It's a
That's
good-
cool. Yeah. What? No, I didn't say that.
Simon loves watching Nazis get murdered.
That's
Hell
right,
yeah.
he does.
Just watching somebody shoot Hitler in the face with a machine gun over and over again.
From like 2 feet away.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty violent.
I was shocked. Like, I mean, I thought for sure Kill Bill would be
Right.
like
right.
second, because he watches anime.
Sure.
He really digs Japanese culture. We are going
And
to
the
start.
fight between Uma and Daryl Hannah, and the second one's
Oh.
based on War of the Gargantuas.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I never
He
knew
showed
that.
him the final fight of the movie, and he basically just said, "Do that."
Oh, that's all. Now I'm gonna. Oh, now I want to do a side by side.
Side by side.
Yeah. So yeah, but no. So it was Reservoir Dogs, Inglorious Bastards, Django Unchained, then Kill Bill, Jackie Brown, Hateful Eight, Pulp Fiction, all the way down.
Dang.
Yeah. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and then Dead Last, which I think is probably on everybody's lists. Death Proof.
Oh.
No, I would put Pulp Fiction and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood under Death Proof. Probably some of the other stuff too. I fucking love Death Proof.
Oh,
I
okay.
do too.
Okay.
but Hollywood's probably moved up to my number one
Hollywood is second for me. It's just so hard, and it's
sure.
probably nostalgia more
because
than
it's the
anything else.
first. When it's
Yeah.
your first.
It's always going to be Reservoir Dogs, which I'm assuming is probably why it's so high with him, because
Yeah.
it's his first one and it blew his mind.
Well, yeah.
Never seen cinema like that
So
before. So
You ranking Kill Bill as one movie? Is that?
yeah, well, I mean he does.
Isn't
So
it?
if he's only making 10 movies, then he should be done by now, right? So Kill Bill in his mind's one. So we'll.
So his last place is the first half of the. God damn it! The full
Grindhouse.
Oh,
Grindhouse.
the Grindhouse.
Yeah, you
See-
meant to say the first half of Grindhouse.
I see. I feel like I did a disservice with Death Proof, that maybe we should have watched it as Grindhouse, the whole package. Because everybody I've talked to about this is like, yeah, no, I get it, Death Proof being the last, but it's a better experience when you watch it as the whole package. I'm like, yeah, no, you're right. So
But if Tarantino released it on its own, as like he even put out like a director's cut, different cut, whatever, that's on him. That it should stand as a standalone film as well. So
oh, I will point out too that we did watch the Netflix a
Hateful
version
Eight?
of Hateful Eight. So the 4 episodes, 50 minutes apiece. And honestly, guys, I need to go back and watch the original cut, because I cannot think of anything that I saw in all 4 of those episodes that could have been on the cutting room floor. Like, just everything just felt so relevant to what was going on. I can't imagine any of it.
Cool.
Anyway, so
What's next for Simon?
that's a good question. I
Which
don't know.
director?
Robert
kinda-
Rodriguez.
Oh yeah, I did talk about that, didn't I? But I don't want to do the whole. I don't want to do his whole catalog, man. It's gonna be just bits and pieces from that catalog.
Yeah.
Or you could-
Here's Spy Kids 3D.
You could spin out to Tarantino's acting if you wanted. Or
Well, we did.
Four Rooms get in there.
See, I debated on Full Rooms. I just have a feeling he probably is not going to like that. I feel like
yet.
Full
You
Rooms
did
is a
Natural Born
pretty-
Killers, though.
No, and I don't think I'm gonna. Okay, here's the thing. Like, I was gonna do Natural Born Killers, but he didn't really care for True Romance, and I'm thinking like he'll probably not like Natural Born Killers either,
Yeah, because
Is
True
that-
Romance is way better.
because True Romance is way better, and Natural Born Killers is like it's kind of a one and done movie for me. It's too chaotic in my opinion.
You should do, like, here's all the awful movies that Pulp Fiction inspired. Here's fucking, what's the awful Boondock Saints. God, so bad.
Oh, Boondock Saints, yeah. No, I had thought about maybe showing him movies that inspired Tarantino.
Yeah.
Right.
I listened to like a 4.5-hour podcast in 2 parts on Pulp Fiction over the last week, and just like them talking about the different, there's like some kind of reference out there online where like every fucking scene is where it came from, and that would be sort of cool to go through, and like the big scenes in some of his movies, what he was referencing, like Brian said with Kill Bill, the fight scene, like everything is inspired
Yeah.
by something with him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so if you're going to do the movies that inspired him next, you better hope they develop some technology that prolongs life. Because
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna take forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Yeah. Or at least maybe just like one for each of the subgenres that inspired him. For Jackie Brown, like show him a black exploitation film, or some of the classic kung fu films or whatever. Anyway, that's what I watched.
Excellent. Someone asked me. what
Ted,
Hey,
what you
Ted.
doing?
happened. Watched Death Game on Joe Bob. That's always, any
yeah.
movie. Joe Bob's great, but I had not seen that. And it is so much better than Knock Knock.
Yes.
Loved it. It was like the perfect last drive-in movie. I love when he shows movies from that era and stuff I haven't seen. It was just like a great night for a movie. So Death Game was fun. And then I saw one other main thing that relates to the show. I finally saw A Quiet Place Day 1.
Okay.
Ooh,
Am I late? Has everyone else seen it already?
No.
Not yet.
I liked it. I don't know. It felt like a summer blockbuster action movie, which was fine. I was sort of in the mood for that when I turned it on. It has the dude from Stranger Things that plays Eddie, and I forget her name from Us. Jordan Peele's Us.
Lupita
Lupita.
Nyong'o.
Yeah, she's so good. And there's a cat, which I am an animal lover, so I was like the whole time that adds having an animal in this world added a whole new level of
oh
tense.
my gosh.
Yeah, I'm like Gomez would have died instantly. Like he'd see one of
What's
those
that?
fucking aliens and huff at him, and he's gone. But it's A Quiet Place in a big city. It's in New York
Oh man.
with a woman who is terminally ill, carrying her cat with her service cat, and so you really feel for her and really root for them, and always root for animals, but they really right away put you in shoes of like you got to care about this character and you really hope that they don't die. So watching, it's tense, and I liked that they did a prequel, and this is not a spoiler, but they still don't explain anything. It's like I was like, yeah, exactly. Like Brian said earlier with The Strangers, like it loses its luster when you explain everything, and it's like this might be the first day, but we still have no idea what these fucking things are and why they're here. It just happens to take place before these movies, so I was happy that it wasn't like these things are from this planet and they came here because of this and that.
Because
and,
we
you know,
did this, or because
Right.
of
See,
Yeah.
this is one case where I want it explained. I want to know how these hearing sensitive monsters came to Earth and took over so quickly that somebody didn't just turn on a Guitar Wolf record and kill them all in the first 5 minutes of their appearance.
You do find out how so many of them get here and where, like, how they get here. It's very Attack the Block style.
So now I'd just rather watch Attack the Block again because that movie's fucking great.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, I liked it. I think it's worth watching. It was fun. I mean, I still think the first one's my favorite, but it's cool that there's this franchise and they're still going strong and right on. And then the last thing I watched that does not have to do with the show, but I thought it was fascinating, is a Hulu documentary called The Contestant. Has anyone seen this? This is from last year.
No, huh?
Oh, this is... I won't explain the whole thing, but basically, in Japan, they set up this... I think it was in, like, the 90s, is the first reality show, like, before everything. Basically, they held auditions, like, put out in the papers or something, you know, we're casting a TV show up, and we're casting someone. Well, a bunch of people show up, bunch of dudes in the same age range, and they pick this guy who's sort of like a loner, loser, got bullied a lot as a kid. He has a sort of a long face. Anyways, they cast him, but it's not like, you've got the role, now we'll start shooting next month. They're like, you're cast, and they literally like pick him up out of his chair and throw him in a car and take him to an apartment and strip him naked and lock the door. And he has a stack of blank postcards, a few catalogs, and a pencil. That's all they give him. And he has to survive on winning contests out of these catalogs. So, like, when you, like, enter a contest for a drawing of, like, oh, you can win, like, a lifetime supply of dog food, or you can win, like, he has to start writing in these things. I guess in Japan it was like you wrote in postcards and survive on this. And he was not aware they were filming him.
Oh.
Like, he didn't know what the show was. He didn't know they were filming him. He had no idea of the premise. They just put him in an apartment with, like, no bed. He didn't have any pots or pans, so no food. So he had to, like, win all this shit and see how long he could go. And, like, it starts taking, obviously, he spoiler, lasts, like, over a year in this apartment.
Oh, my goodness.
Without talking to a single person. And their Truman showing him, they have hidden cameras all over. He has no idea he's a national, like, phenomenon. Like, he has no idea they're broadcasting this all over Japan. And so he's, like, dancing naked. He's eating dog food. He's talking to himself. He's, like, so when they go and edit these episodes, they, like, put, like, an eggplant over his dick, and they, like, make, like, funny sound effects when he, like, hurts himself or when he does something, and just make him out to be, like, the biggest fucking idiot in all of the world. And so when he, like, you know, when he's having, like, mental breakdowns, they're making fun of him with, like, little goofy sound effects and shit. And yeah, it's hard to watch because they interview him, like, this was years ago, and they bring him back and they're talking to him. Yeah, and it's just like, fuck, like, you know, it's sort of funny at times, but also, like, he would have done things very differently if he knew he was being filmed and broadcast to the world. So it's a fascinating documentary. It's on Hulu.
Wow.
But called The Contestant, and he's considered the tagline is the naked truth about the world's first reality star. Wild shit. And that's what I watched.
That's messed up. All right, so I suppose we should get into the topic.
Yeah, I feel like you guys have just been trying to put it off.
Yeah, we were stalling. It's the longest open ever.
Well, how can we talk about this topic without having Brian go first?
That's right.
What's our first film, Brian?
First film is Dr. Jekyll and the Werewolf.
Just observe the look in his eyes. Set me free. A simple joke. These creatures simply do not exist. You've no power over me anymore.
Why don't you come away too?
I can't. It's my destiny. I will use the formula discovered by my grandfather. Enough. Doctor, can I be cured? I don't know, Waldemar.
All right, so Justine and her husband go to, I think it's supposed to be Transylvania. It's sort of a fairy tale version of Europe of the past. And they're beset by some thugs who kill her husband and are about to rape her when she is rescued by the great Waldemar Daninsky. The leader of the men escapes back to the village and starts an uprising against Daninsky because he's a werewolf. The mob murder the two servants who live with him in his castle, and Daninsky and Justine escape back to London, where she knows a man who might be able to help cure his lycanthropy, her friend Dr. Jekyll. The idea is that bringing out Daninsky's Mr. Hyde, who has the advantage of being sentient, might make him both reasonable enough and strong enough to withstand whatever cure they come up with for lycanthropy. But it turns out that Hyde is even worse than the werewolf, and as always, for poor Waldemar, things end in tears and blood. Now, this Dr. Jekyll isn't supposed to be the original. As you heard in the trailer, he says something about using the formula originated by his grandfather, so there is some paying homage to, whatever world this takes place in. The story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde also took place in this universe. So Waldemar Daninsky, the lycanthrope, is the character that Naschy's most well known for. He played him in I can't remember exactly how many movies. This is the 6th one, though. And they don't really have any internal continuity because all of them, but I want to say it's the Werewolf and the Yeti, I think, has a happy ending. But otherwise, it's pretty much always ends in tragedy. And even though that is his most famous character, his Hyde in this is chef's kiss. He is so fucking scary and creepy and evil with that pasty makeup and those gold contact lenses. Oh, it's just like one of his best scary performances. And he's also very good at playing the tragic and sympathetic type of character. But when he wants to turn on the evil, man, he can do it very, very well. Thinking of those gold contact lenses, those were like the full eye scleral ones, that cover everything. And they had to give him a local anesthetic so he could withstand the pain of having them in his eyes. And in the scene where he's fighting Myrta Miller, Dr. Jekyll's assistant, who, again, by the way, Dr. Jekyll played by the great Jack Taylor. You guys probably recognize him. He's in a ton of Spanish horror movies, but he does a lot with Jess Franco. He's also in Conan the Barbarian in a small role. Anyway, so when Naschy's fighting Dr. Jekyll's assistant in the hay bales, he lost one of the contact lenses, and of course they didn't have the budget to replace them, and the shooting schedule wasn't very long, so they were frantically trying to find it. Well, they were looking for it, and it popped out of his eyelid. So in all the tussle and the struggle in that scene, it had like slid up inside his head, but he couldn't feel it because of the anesthetic.
Oh my god!
So yeah, some suffering for his art, right?
Jesus, how'd they get it out?
I mean, it popped back out while they were looking for it. It just slid its way back down onto his eye, and they're like, "Oh, we
still
found
there
it."
to this day.
That's right.
Right. And that wasn't the only snafu there. The makeup guy also went a little crazy gluing on the werewolf makeup, and they wound up having to cut it off with a scalpel.
Oh, Jesus.
Because they glued it on so hard, even like whatever they used to dissolve it wouldn't get rid of all the glue. It was like pulling his skin off.
They used
So they
Gorilla
just
Glue
had to
or what?
basically surgically slice it off with a scalpel. Yeah,
So he just lived as a werewolf for the next 3 months.
I'm
I mean,
pretty
he
sure
lived
he's
as a
fine with
werewolf
that.
most of his life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Shirley Corrigan, who played Justine, the lead actress, said that during the outdoor scenes, when the actors and the crew were separated by large distances, Naschy and Leon Klimovsky, the director, both had a megaphone, and they were just yelling at each other back and forth. She actually left her film career. She didn't do films very long, but she left her film career to do charity work and spent 5 years side by side with Mother Teresa.
Oh, wow.
So, all kinds of interesting people involved in these movies. Leon Klimovsky, the director, this was the director that Naschy worked with most before he started directing his own movies. He wrote or co-wrote almost all of the main films that he's in and starred in them as well. And later on, as he observed Klimovsky and later Carlos Allred picked up enough of the art, it's like, well, I want to try doing this. And some of the movies that he directed are actually some of his best ones. El Caminante is fantastic, for example. But we're not talking about El Caminante tonight. We're talking about Dr. Jekyll and the Werewolf right now. What did you guys think?
Everybody, nobody.
Okay, I will preface all that scary silence by saying, and this is what I was afraid of when I posited this episode. Now
I'll go first if you want me to.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to finish this thought that I was worried that, when we were talking in the Frankenstein episode about Frankenstein 80, about how watching that awful print on Tubi might have harmed some of our enjoyment of watching the movie and seeing it. You said you watched the trailer for Frankenstein 80 and it looked like a different movie. Well, I am a huge Paul Naschy fan, and I have all of these movies on Blu-ray or even 4K in this case. And so I'm watching these pristine prints, and I was very concerned that you guys were going to wind up finding these fuck-awful pan and scan, washed-out alpha video bullshit prints, and that you were going to hate them because you couldn't see how great they really look when you see them as they're meant to be seen. But anyway.
This one was. The other two were okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I disclosed this in the chat this is the first one I watched. I usually try to watch them in order.
Same.
And I'm not a fan of Tubi in the first place. I've not just for their not just for their awful originals, but their poor quality transfers, their commercials. If there's any other way for me to watch a movie, I will. I'll watch it on a fucking Game Boy before I watch on Tubi. But
and if we didn't live 3 hours apart, I would have just had you guys come over and you could have watched them all together.
Yeah. That being said, I watched it. I joked in the chat about, it looked like it was filmed with a loaf of bread. But
I was unsure what you meant by that. Did you mean they were using a loaf of bread as the camera, or they were shooting it through a loaf of bread as a lens?
Using the loaf of bread as a camera. A lot of people say potatoes, but I was thinking this one's softer even than a potato, so a loaf of bread. But I tried to, and I disclosed this in the chat too. I tried to not let. I tried to actually find a different version of it because I really wanted to give it a fair shake, and I unfortunately didn't. But I watched it and still really liked it. I'll say I went back and tried to find a better transfer of this one after I watched the other two movies because I could see without the hindrance of a poor transfer, I can really enjoy these movies. And I wanted to give this one the best chance because I'm like, I don't want that to cloud my judgment too much. That being said, even with the worst transfer, I still enjoyed it. I still really liked this movie. It's you put anybody in a fucking werewolf makeup and have monsters. I mean, how could you not like it? We're sitting here mid-August. The weather's getting cooler. You have these cool movies, like these weird Spanish horror movies. It makes me think of late night horror hosts. I'm like, how can you not just want to get under a blanket and fucking watch this stuff? I don't know. I really enjoyed it. This is all new to me. Like, you know, anything I've seen with Paul Naschy is simply because Brian has somehow weaseled it onto the show, and making a full episode.
I've only pulled that off once so far.
Right, and that's the one. I mean, the one time before this that we watched something with Paul Naschy was my first time. So this is like all new to me. But I can safely say from my limited watching of this, I mean, I think this is more my lane than Hammer. And that's probably
nice,
controversial, but
no, that's actually really exciting. That's.
But I was not like these movies, even with the shitty transfer on Tubi and commercial breaks every fucking 3 minutes. I still did not find myself looking at my phone or being distracted. I really just dug these. I will say, watching them like one night after the next, I'm trying not to let them run over each other too. You know, like, was that scene from this one or that one? But they have like a great cohesion. Like it seems like it'd be a fun, like Joe Bob should do a Naschy marathon. That would be fun.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I'd be in heaven there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Two of his favorite things.
Yeah.
Well, Mike.
So I didn't. You're safe. You're safe. I did not hate any of these. I actually liked. Yeah.
I was nervous, I got to tell you, but that makes me really happy. I'm glad you like these. Not to me, I say that like I had fucking anything to do with them, but
Well, enjoy that feeling, because no, I'm just kidding. Well, so mine were, all my comments are in spite of the transfer. I didn't let that bother me. I used to Mike making us watch shit that's been peed on, and
I'm just saying, be grateful I didn't pick Werewolf versus Vampire Women, because, oh my God. I found it in 4 different locations, all of them the exact same crappy transfer.
And again, that one is out on 4K now.
I don't
Why
get
the
it.
fuck does someone not license the good transfers to stream them?
I don't get
God
it.
damn
Not even on YouTube was there. I mean, and like that movie starts off with a night scene, and you literally cannot see anything.
the whole movie's a night scene in a tent.
Anyway, you were saying, I'm sorry.
There's plenty of good things that I liked about it. Number one being Paul Naschy. Werewolf, he was good. Definitely better as Hyde. He was great. It was nice seeing the other main dude, Jack Taylor. He did look familiar to me a little bit. But it all came down. Here's the reason I didn't like this movie. It's not that I didn't want to, because I think like the writing, Paul wrote it too, right? So I think the writing was fine and cool. I mean, what a great concept, mixing up, 2 different things. The first mashup, but if I never watch another, sorry, maybe he got better at this, Brian, but if I never watch another Leon Kilmofsky movie, to me, I could not handle how this was edited. They took out every single space between the words in scenes. It would just go words, and it just would cut. There would be like, it was the herky-jerkiest. There was 0 transitions.
Okay.
The way it was edited was painful to watch.
And that almost makes me
so
wonder
mad.
So here's a question. Did the version you watched have nudity or no?
Yeah, after the second one, it's hard to remember, because that one was all nudity.
Well, okay, because these movies, the early films that he made anyway were, Franco was still in control in Spain, so that's one of the reasons. Like, this is set in London. The next 2 are set, or one of the next ones is set in France. One of them set in Germany, because they weren't allowed to show horrible things happening in Spain. They weren't allowed to show nudity, sexual violence of any kind, that kind of thing. So they would shoot 2 versions of the movies. So anytime there was a scene where there was a sex scene or a torture scene or whatever, they'd shoot a clothed one and a naked one. And that can have some difference. And also, if this is some awful print, that leads me to wonder if it wasn't something that somebody grabbed from an old VHS that might have been like a TV edit where it was even choppier.
I don't want to blame Tubi, even though Ted would like that. And like all of them had a herky jerkiness to them. The second one was great, not. Third one was in between. But this one, the only way to really tell, Brian, I think, is for you to just have to suffer through this Tubi print and tell me, because
check that out.
It was the choppiest fucking thing I could. It just made me so mad.
But also, now Naschy did have kind of a, I don't want to say love-hate, but he worked with Klimovsky a lot, but he did say about, and specifically about this movie, but in general, Klimovsky got a lot of work because he was known for getting things in on time and under budget. He could shoot fast. And Naschy said that because of the speed that he shot at and how, the way he worked, there were a lot of missed opportunities and weak points that he felt could have been improved. So that it could very well be that you're just picking up on the same thing that Naschy complained about making movies with Klimovsky. So.
Yeah, I said Kilmovsky. That's a way cooler name. But then also to say one more good thing is after watching all three, I'm like, all right, I can see why Brian likes this, because it's like, here's this Spanish dude like putting himself as the star in all these cool Universal-esque type situations, and like getting to play all the monsters. Like he's built himself his own universe.
Yeah,
and that's fucking cool.
He's like the original monster kid made good, because he saw Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman in the theater, and he was a kid, and he had never seen, like, he liked movies before that, but seeing that was like, holy shit, that, like, he said he Spanish censors were very strict back in the day under Franco, and so children weren't allowed into horror movies. But he knew an usher at this theater, because he was always at the theater watching, like, Crash Corrigan serials and stuff like that. And so this usher said, like, okay, kid, like, I'll let you in, just, be cool and keep your head down if somebody, because they'd have aisle walkers come through and make sure there weren't kids who snuck in the movie. And he said he was in such a daze after he saw Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman that he stumbled out of the theater and forgot to even thank the guy who let him in. Like, he was just, and he went right home and drew a picture of Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, and it changed his whole life. And so when he got into a position where he could start making movies, that's what he did. He wanted to be the Wolfman. He loved Larry Talbot, and there you go. So you again picked up on that. Like, that's exactly what he was going for. I just sent into our chat a picture from his autobiography. It's a scan of the picture that he drew as a kid after he saw Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. That's great radio. Like, hey, look at this picture I sent over the internet. But
that's cool that it exists.
Yeah,
the photo. So very cool.
Well, it's not going to be any mystery. I definitely loved all three of these movies. I want to start by saying that, then follow up with, like, this is probably my least favorite of the three.
Mine too.
And for me, I kind of take a little bit of issue with the story structure, because it feels like about every 15, 20 minutes we switch protagonists.
Yeah.
Like, it starts off with the couple, and then once Waldemar shows up, then it's all about him, and then, and he runs off with the girl, and then there's a good chunk of the movie where the girl's gone forever. And then we finally get to Dr. Jekyll.
Yeah.
And then it's about him there for a while, and then comes back to so story structure, wasn't the best.
There's a lot going on.
yeah, just kind of jumping around.
To me, that's what led to these feeling like the longest short movies ever. Just because, like, the structure was so, I'm just like, are they even is Jekyll even in that? Like, get there.
But yeah, his Wolfman is awesome.
Yeah.
You could just tell he just loves playing that part. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm right there with you guys. His Mr. Hyde Wow, I see why they call him the Lon Chaney of Spain, because it's. I mean, yeah, he's got the contacts, he's got some makeup, but it's still minimal makeup. But there is a big transformation, because what really caught me is like after he transformed back from Mr. Hyde to his normal self, it's like a really quick cutaway back to him normal, and I'm like, oh my god, that's a different dude. So he really transforms into those characters more than just the makeup. I love the idea of it, the concept of, and what a great way of bringing these two monsters together by, using Dr. Jekyll's formula as a cure for being a werewolf is great. Where's the verses? That's all I guess
there isn't a versus Dr. Jekyll and the werewolf.
Oh, is it Dr. Jekyll and the werewolf?
Well, IMDb says versus.
Okay.
Oh, well.
Which is... No, I know. Well, yeah, lots of titles.
Yeah, so of most of his movies have like 15 different titles, so this one's fairly restrained in that department.
I just didn't know if he loved playing the monsters so much that he refused to let anybody else play the monsters. So when this one came along, it's like, okay, this is how we're gonna do it, where I get to play both.
Yeah.
But seriously, that what I love about all of his films is I love the look of them, despite the Tubi quality. I love the look of them. I love the score. I love the music. Just that classic haunting organ music that you would hear on back in the 80s on some late night horror host show. Mm-hmm. Those generic canned werewolf or the wolf howls that show up again. So these are movies now that'll probably start being in rotation around Halloween season for me, because it just, all three of these just invoke those feelings for me.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thumbs up for me. And then Tad, right, we're skipping trivia because that's what we have Brian here for.
Brian's got it.
On this one, at least. I do have some stuff on the next two.
Okay, cool.
Which probably won't get to because Brian will probably mention it, which is fine.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, so Tad, what is our next film?
Our next film has the coolest fucking title, Horror Rises from the Tomb.
From the dark and mysterious Middle Ages, full of mystery and violence, there now comes to the screen, fear rises from the tomb. A curse which would bring these people to the most terrifying situations. Fear rises from the tomb. With Emma Cohen, Paul Naschy, Vic Winner, Cristina Suriani, Betsabe Ruiz, and Helga Linné in the role of...
Maria.
Fear rises from the tomb, with all the mystery and terror of medieval rites and witchcraft. The infernal powers of evil persecuting these defenseless beings. Only the talisman could free them from the spellbinding influence. Fear rises from the tomb. A terrifying experience. It will take you a long time to forget.
No! 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 Ah!
Fear Rises from the Tomb. A Pro Films production. Directed by Carlos Aurez.
7 moons have passed. Today we shall take them. I want, when the supreme day comes, that they are sufficiently prepared for the sacrifice.
Jesus Christ, has a trailer ever felt longer than the movie before? A warlock's severed head is unearthed centuries after his execution. Reanimated, it seeks to reunite with its body, wreaking havoc as a group encounters its sinister quest. I mean, if that trailer was on Tubi, it would have had 3 commercial breaks. But just hearing that sort of repetitive organ score on there, like, I was having flashbacks of watching this the other night.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's the score that I love so much from all 3 of these movies. It's a great example of it.
Music was by Carmelo Berneola.
Okay.
If that matters.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
That old Carlo, yeah, remember him. I will say, when I started this one, like, right away, it's like set in like medieval times. I'm like, fuck, like I do not like many movies set at this time period. And then there's immediately nudity and a beheading, and I'm like, fuck yeah, like, okay, I'm in now. And then we have a time jump, so I'm like, all right, cool. We got a spooky castle movie where people they're looking for a fucking head. How could you not like it? It's a 2 heads up. I really like this one. This one was on Plex. Thank you, Plex, because it looked so good.
What a relief.
It's a great transfer, yeah.
Yeah, looked so much better and made watching it so much easier, even with their ads, which seem like half as many as Tubi. This one's just cool as hell. I mean, literally, what I just said, there's a warlock gets his head severed right away at the beginning, and they hang a witch, and then it's a group goes looking for the head, and the head's trying to reunite with its own body, and crazy shit goes down, and there's some really gnarly makeup effects. And this one, I don't know if this one's my favorite or not, but I think this one's my favorite. I like this one a lot. It definitely gave me the most haunted house Halloween horror vibes. Again, sorry to Vincent Price, but man, this one like outdoes all of his, Mask of Red Death and stuff that we watched. Like, this is just like that, but way cooler.
Yeah, this was definitely my favorite too. I thought it had the best story. That was easy to follow, even though him finally getting his body back felt like it was 3 hours till right at the end, but. And then, like, at the beginning, you said, I'm like, I thought we were watching Lord of the Rings. They were just walking on the horses were just going, and it took forever.
You made a Lord of the Rings joke?
I did when I was watching it, too. But
oh, my goodness.
No, I know. But, yeah, it was great. He was great. The video transfer was awesome. I audio nerded, hated the audio transfer. They used they ran it through a filter to...
Noise gate.
To take some noise out, and it completely, to me, ruined the audio. It was so
all the
noticeable.
S's had crush on them.
Yeah.
Anytime somebody said something with an S,
unacceptable.
That was painful. Yeah,
but that was part of like all of these was the translate. Like the voiceover, the translation. Like, I was like, that's sort of the part of the charm. But like when you get to crushing S's, but that's not on the filmmakers.
Sure.
No. So, yeah, it was great. And then, I liked all the characters. It was quite a boob fest. That was awesome, of course. But I was, like, legit terrified when it turned into a zombie movie at the end. I was like, God damn.
Yeah.
I'm like, did we go to Italy? What happened here?
Great zombies. And it's the same makeup guy who did the Horror Express.
Ah.
Okay,
which explains the weird white eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was legit trapped in that hallway. I was like, oh, Jesus, what the fuck? But, I like this one a lot.
Yeah, I do too. I really like this one a lot as well. It kind of gave me a little bit his character in it. Well, first of all, I do have to say one thing, that how come every movie that takes place, in the medieval times or whatever, and they're about ready to execute or crucify the witch or the warlock. They put a curse on the ancestors as if that's supposed to scare the crowd. Like, I don't care about my great grandson right now. It doesn't. What do I care if you curse them 1,000 years from now? Who cares?
Not my problem.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, the severed head stuff was great. I like how well preserved the head was. That was great.
What they did, the camera tricks with real, fake, as they moved it to. That's fun. That's fun stuff.
Is it weird for me to say that I've kind of felt like this is probably my favorite character that he played in all three? Mm-hmm. He's just so.
You're talking about menacing. Hugo or Alaric de Marnac?
The Alaric, yeah. He just was so menacing. I think I really liked him a lot. Kind of is it weird for me to say that I feel like it kind of felt a little Coffin Joe to me?
No, that makes sense. I mean,
I could see it.
Spain and South America, but still,
it's like Coffin Joe with a budget, So, but yeah, I really dug this one a lot too.
It's the Euro sleaze version of The Thing That Couldn't Die.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just pretended he was Zod the whole time. I was like, whoa. Anyway.
So what about you, Brian?
Brian, did you even like this one at all?
No, it's terrible. Honestly, aside, like I was saying before, Daninsky is the characters that he's most known for. But if I were to pick a single movie to introduce people to Paul Naschy movies, it would be this one. I think it's one of his strongest, from just about every standpoint. I mean, there are other movies that I would say are better movies, but just from a sheer, you're talking about those October vibes, from a great horror film standpoint. This one's got, almost anything you could want. It's got zombies. It's got tons of great gore. It's got gorgeous naked women. It's that score, that organ. Yes. And the visuals. This was the first movie directed by Carlos Aurred. Now, he was the director of the previous Naschy movie we watched, Blue Eyes of the Broken Doll. He had been Leon Klimovsky's assistant before, and I think Aured's a better director than Klimovsky. I think his movies tend to be more visually interesting. He does more stuff with the camera than Klimovsky does. Like that shot of de Marnac's head floating above Maurice's canvas when he's painting after the seance, and because he has that unfinished portrait that he's working on. And he's like, I'm painting this thing, but I don't really know what it's going to be. And then they have the seance where de Marnac's head comes and talks to them, or talks through the medium. And then so he goes back into his studio, and almost like he's in a trance, he's just finishing this painting, and it's this painting of de Marnac holding his severed head. And then he's looking at the finished product. You see these drips of blood coming down it, and he looks up, and de Marnac's head is floating above the canvas, laughing at him. And the blood dripping from this ghost head, but physically splattering on the painting, is kind of foreshadowing the supernatural coming back into the physical world again later when de Marnac is resurrected, right?
Yeah.
And something else you get in this one, and it's not just in this one, it's kind of a through line of Naschy's movies, is the old world versus new world, right? Where you have, like it starts out in a period piece thing, and then there's the time jump, but you have these swinging urbanites, these young modern people going to this family estate to search for the treasure and for the head of de Marnac, and they meet these rustic ruffians, right? And they're introduced to this sort of more brutal rural way of living when these guys try to mug them and steal their car, and some villagers from near the estate could shoot one of the muggers and hang the other one right in front of them. It's like, whoa, some frontier justice shit. Like, they do things differently out in the sticks, right? and because of the way Naschy grew up in he was a child during the Spanish Civil War, grew up under Franco's fascist regime, was a was an adolescent during World War II. He actually was sent to a German school, and he remembers like they had a big assembly in the gym and had to all the staff of the school mourning Hitler's death. Like, yeah, and so he grew up in this crazy, brutal time period in Spain's history when there was this shift from the more rural to the more modern, but with all this horrific, just, blood and thunder in between. And so you see that a lot in his movies, where there's this struggle to kind of romanticize the past while also acknowledging how brutal it was and trying to move forward into the future, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Anyway, also the scene where they resurrect the sorceress is really fucking cool, right? Yeah. Totally jumping from like this serious thoughtful thing into like, wow, wasn't this neat? When he gets that girl down and over the skeleton and stabs her in her blood. It's kind of like, in a Hammer movie, they resurrect Dracula by somebody accidentally bleeds on the vampire's ashes or whatever. But he cuts the girl open and her blood goes down in the skeleton. And then there's this switch where suddenly the sorceress, played by Helga Linnea, who, wow, is underneath, and the girl on top is now the skeleton, and she just throws the skeleton off her like, I'm back, motherfuckers. God, that scene is great.
Yeah, it's badass.
Emma Cohen, the lead actress, Naschy worked with a bevy of gorgeous women. Like, I mean, he wrote himself as all the monsters. He also wrote himself all the sex scenes.
Oh yeah, of course.
But I think Emma Cohen might be, the most beautiful of Naschy's leading ladies, and she's such a great lead in this particularly because you have. If it was somebody like Myrta Miller, who was Jekyll's assistant in the previous movie, like she. Or like Rosanna Yanni, who's in the next movie, they're really striking, but they're very severe and strong looking. Like, you could believe they should kick your ass, basically, right? Whereas Emma Cohen has this sort of sad vulnerability about her that really heightens all the horror and all the threat to her, because it makes you not just think she's attractive, but it makes you want to protect her, right? She seems more... I don't know, down to earth, that's not quite right, but do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where she just has this really sort of ethereal, vulnerable quality to her that just makes the scary stuff scarier.
Scarier, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I get that.
One other thing is they defeat Demarnak, and I've drawn a blank on the sorcerer's name, so I don't have it right in front of me, but they defeat them with a Thor's hammer pendant.
Right.
Now, as I was saying before, they couldn't show this stuff happening in Spain because that was a big no-no under Franco. So this is set in France. Naschy said they used the Thor's hammer instead of a crucifix because he just wanted to try something different. It's an imagery that you don't see a lot in this, and there's some hints at there being Nordic background in the family.
Yeah.
It could also have been because using Christian symbolism would have got him in trouble with Franco's censors. But because of the relocation to France, it also makes sense that there's a great deal of Viking influence there. Because, I mean, that's why Normandy is called Normandy, Norman, Northman, right? Like the Vikings were all over France, but they didn't really have much to do in Spain. So it's interesting that he specifically picked that as opposed to, it could have been an Ankh or any old thing. But, and again, Alaric de Marnac is kind of sort of Gilles de Rais, the psycho Satanist French child murderer necrophile who worked with Joan of Arc during Crusades. But Jason, you said that this was, you thought, the most coherent and easy to follow of them, right?
Yeah.
So, where is... lose my place. I've got his
I regret saying it now.
Well, no, it's just... It's interesting that you say that because... I'm going to read now from Naschy's autobiography, Memoirs of a Wolfman, which is fantastic, and everyone should pick up a copy, by the way. Let me recount an anecdote from the movie. This horror rises from the tomb. The area where we filmed the beheading of Alaric and the hanging of Mobile, that's the sorceress's name, was known as Roble Gordo, Great Oak. The reason is simple. The outstanding feature of the district was a huge ancient oak tree steeped in history and legend. The famed Count Fernan Gomez's hordes camped by the tree in preparation for one of their battles. Naturally, this oak was listed as part of Spain's national heritage. Well, we finished filming a medieval scene which had featured a lot of horses and soldiers carrying standards and flaming torches. Early the following morning, Ulipi rushed in to wake me. All that was left of the famous tree was a pile of smoldering ashes. Apparently a torch had been left alight, and the strong wind took care of the rest. As a result, the forestry engineer who had granted us permission to film there got the sack, and the mayor of Alameda got into deep water with the environment department.
Oh, no.
And also, now this going back to the thing about the story being most easily to follow, this was the first movie made by a studio called Profilmes. Pere Giner, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, apologies to the Spanish-speaking audience, called me up in a terrible hurry. He urgently needed a horror screenplay since the creation of the production company depended on it. I didn't have one, but I told him I could write one pretty fast. I had to do it in a day and a half. With the help of amphetamine tablets, I managed it in what is obviously a record time. So he took a bunch of speed and wrote this in a day and a half.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, maybe not the speed part, but writing in a day and a half. And this is what you get. Love it.
Yeah, it was cohesive. It was all...
See, Hollywood, you don't need like 10 different writers.
That's what I'm saying.
Rewriting Borderlands. Just put one guy on speed at a typewriter and give him one day.
Also, listeners, if you like hearing Brian read from a book, head on over to jointheattackers.com where you can hear him read King Kong at the moment.
I promise I'll get another one of those done eventually.
I'm going to play those when I go to bed at night.
Yeah.
It's my bedtime stories. Uh-huh. Tad, did you have trivia for this one?
Yeah, there's a few things. This is one of the 13 titles included in Avco Embassy's Nightmare Theater package syndicated to television in 1975, along with two other Paul Naschy entries, The Fury of the Wolfman and The Mummy's Revenge. This was remade in India as Pirana Mandir, so I sort of want to see the Indian remake of this.
I never put that together that was meant to be a remake of this, but yeah, that's actually a fun flick. That's Mondo Macabro put that out in a box set earlier this year.
There you go. We can do other countries remaking Naschy episode next.
Don't tempt them.
Christina Seriani.
Episode.
No. Yeah. Christina Seriani received an introducing credit at the beginning. However, this was her 5th film. And that's what I have for trivia.
All right, excellent. So thanks, Tubi Tad. Jason, what is our next film?
Our next film, it's got 2 different dates. Some say 1973, some say 75. But anyway, up next, we're going to be talking about Hunchback of the Morgue.
Death is on its way. Beware the Hunchback of the Morgue. A freak of nature. A slave with a body broken from torture. A maniac with crimes beyond your wildest terrors. What kind of underground horror chamber is he building? What kind of monster is he creating? Why does he need more and more flesh? Who is he? What is his weird secret? The secret that strangles an entire city with fear. The secret you'll remember all the way to your coffin. The
the secret that made him the Hunchback of the Morgue.
A hunchback working in a morgue falls in love with a sick woman. He goes berserk when she dies and seeks help from a scientist to bring her back from the dead. It was fun to see some other dudes come back. What's his name? Vic Winter. That's such a great name, right?
Yeah.
Vic Winter. Jason Winter. I'm going to change it. And I feel like there was at least one of those girls was back from the last movie. Seemed like it, but...
Maria Pershey's in Blue Eyes of the Broken Doll. She's the one in the wheelchair.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember her now.
But I like this movie. It was good. I thought I enjoyed. Well, so I'm torn on his performance of the Hunchback. I think everything's great. But then he just talks normal. He just got the same normal talk.
I praised him on being the Lon Chaney in the Jekyll one. This one, I have like the opposite response of like Paul's idea of a hideous hunchback is bad hair and one scar above his eye, and that's really it. I mean, I'm sorry, Brian. Yeah, he's awesome, and I love him and everything that he's doing. But this one,
He didn't do the makeup though.
No, I know, but that's just an extension of like I don't really feel like he pulled off as hideous as everybody was trying to make him out to be.
Well, yeah,
right.
And that's just, I mean, he's a fairly handsome dude normally.
He's a very handsome dude.
And I don't know if that might have been like because they call him Monkey Face a whole bunch in this movie.
Yeah,
and I don't know if there was originally plans to have a more extensive makeup like in the silent version, and then they decided not to. Because it would be harder to make him sympathetic if he looked like a monster, or if it.
Well,
I mean, Naschy obviously had no issue getting under makeup, so I don't think it was vanity on his part. But I wonder if they thought it would make Goto too hard to relate to.
But I also feel like though I'm saying the same thing about his Mr. Hyde, where it was minimal makeup, but I feel like we lost him in the performance. Yeah. This I didn't feel like as much, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And especially as how much everybody in this movie hammers it home on how hideous he is.
It feels like one of the compromises of production.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe with... yes.
But I do think you have a good point of like, where's that line if you want to try to make him a sympathetic character, but you also want to make him horrific.
Right, because if he was a googly-eyed monster, it not only would it be hard to believe that Rosaniani would want to bang him.
I was just going to bring that
but
which it still was a little unbelievable.
It was very unbelievable.
And, I was talking about earlier that there were clothed and unclothed versions of these movies.
Oh.
Even in the unclothed version of this, they kind of cut away from that sex scene, but apparently they did at some point film it like when he has his shirt off and had a prosthetic hump because it shows up on some Mexican lobby cards.
Oh, okay.
But it never was any version of the movie that I'm aware of. That
Mike's just mad he didn't get to see the hump.
I think it'd have been cool. I would love to have seen what that would look like as far as
what that warlock looks like.
What the makeup, what the appliance looks like, how well they did it.
What's he got in his trunk?
Yeah. Yeah. Bunch of junk.
Bunch of humps.
So I completely interrupted you, Jason. Did you have more to say?
I thought this one went back a little more clunky, or like they made us believe there was a connection with him and the dead lady, because it happened so fast, and we're like, what?
What do you mean?
In the very beginning, their connection. There's a history of him and her, and it's
They
just
went
like,
to school
what?
together and stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah,
but
from childhood, she was the only one who was ever nice to him because,
Sure.
everyone
But what
they-
you're saying, it was
they
just
did all
a
that in
setup
a
to
few
that.
words
Yeah.
and like 30 seconds of screen time. I'm exaggerating, but like it felt so short.
It was all spoken exposition.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, what? I learned later it was bigger of a deal. Then it was like, am I supposed to care? So. But she was great. It was all. Why? And then how does no one see this hole that he's taking people down into until the girl does at the end? Like,
Well, especially since they say that they were used during World War II, which was only 30 years ago at the time that this movie is set, and also the opening to those catacombs is in the middle of the fucking street. He just pulls that like really obvious panel out of the road and climbs down into it.
Yeah.
And how did we make it this far without mentioning flaming rats? I mean, Jesus Christ.
that was
Yeah, that was
unfortunate.
rough.
People talk about Cannibal Holocaust. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is burning live rats on camera, guys. Like,
Yeah, they're-
just heads up if you're going to watch these.
Yeah, it's tough. And he's since expressed regret that, like, it was one of those, it was a different time. Nobody really cared then. It was just there for shock value. And as he got older, he's like, oh man, I wish we hadn't have done that. If it makes you feel any better, they bit the shit out of him. Like those scenes when they're jumping up at him. Apparently, that was like
that's a thing,
because
too.
they were just down there
He's,
in
like,
the
doing
catacombs.
karate.
They weren't like movie rats. They were just some rats they found, and they were hungry. So and they were aggressive. So whenever they tried to shoot the scene, they would like leap onto him and bite into his hands and legs. So they, I mean, I wouldn't call it a 1-for-1 revenge, but they at least got a few licks in before they got set on fire.
That shit was crazy.
Yeah. But beyond that, like I appreciated it. It felt like this had more gore in it than the others.
Yeah.
Oh man, when he goes down there and the rats are like eating away at her,
Oh, so sad.
that was some cool makeup. That looked good.
Yeah. Face is gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
That, and when he's carrying it over like his shoulder, that shit's all gross. Like, when they do like dramatic zoom in on like a gnawed off face, it's gnarly. It's like part of it's like it looks like made of paper mache, but some reason looks real.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. It's like so visceral, I guess. It looks like I'm like now I see where all these like death metal bands get their album cover inspiration. It's Paul Naschy makeup.
Yeah,
And those two guys that throw her corpse in, and then he like hits one in the face with a jug of acid and shoves the other one into an Iron Maiden.
Yeah,
just leaves them down there to decompose.
And I love for good measure. Let's put him in the Iron Maiden, but then pull it back open so we could get the good gore shot.
Get a good look. Yeah.
And my biggest takeaway from this movie is that there needs to be more movies with acid baths built into the floor.
True.
Right?
I just loved that. That's just just
what's
tossing
and
people
House,
into it and
House on Haunted Hill, the other one.
oh yeah, this was a much cooler acid bath. But I also I don't know. It's kind of a toss up between this one and Horror Rises from the Tomb, but I really really like this one. This could be maybe my favorite out of the three. Although, I mean, I had a couple of little chuckles right at the beginning because you get the opening credit sequence and there's this
That
music
oompa music.
What's that?
That oompa.
Yeah, that
like
oompa,
polka
like
thing. Yeah.
polka Bavarian music or whatever, and then it cuts to the bar, and there's a band playing, and the drunken man demands them play something else because they're bored with the same music they've been playing. So what do? They play the music from the opening credits. That kind of cracked me up. I felt like, is that like an intentional joke
Intentionally
there?
funny, yeah.
Or when the drunk guy leaves the bar and he calls the hunchback a fart face. That was my favorite line.
There's definitely some, I think, intentional humor. I think that music thing is one of them. The scene in
gotta
Dr.
be.
Jekyll and the Werewolf where he gets where he's going up to meet Dr. Jekyll for the first time and the elevator breaks and he and that nurse are trapped in it until the moon comes up and he turns into a werewolf and kills her. Like, there's no way they didn't know that was funny.
Yeah. Like, how did he see the moon from the elevator?
I don't think you need to see it. I think it's just the influence of it. But.
Oh, okay.
We're trying to reason, yeah. Like,
And it was like the medical student kills himself drinking like gallon jugs of like those glasses they bring him. It's like that scene in Fellowship of the Ring. Like, it comes in pints. I'm getting one. Like, it comes in fucking 3-gallon those glass like cartoonish glasses of beer.
I remember making jokes. I'm like, are they small people? Are they hobbitses? Like, they were so oversized.
It's my kind of glass of beer. Yeah.
I was gonna say, as Brian's watching it with the same glass. Where do I get these?
That's right.
You get him, Gomez.
Get him. Sick him.
I said earlier that Horror Rises would be the one I would introduce someone to Naschy with. But I'm with you, Mike. This one's my favorite of the bunch. Because it's fucking nuts.
Yes. Exactly.
I mean, it's amazing that it's more nuts than the movie that was written in like 32 hours on speed. But there's so much going on. And it's one of, like, I've watched it several times and I sat down and watched it again because it's probably been about a year since the last time I visited it. I rewatched it for the show and I was just thinking, like, there's shit I don't even remember happening. And this is like the 4th or 5th time I watched this movie. And because it starts out and you think it's this simple Hunchback story. He's going to kill people because, in revenge for this girl dying. And then you get the mad scientist angle and you're going, okay, he wants, now the mad scientist is going to take advantage of him. He's going to go kill victims. Okay. Oh, wait, the mad scientist is doing what? He's making a fucking Shoggoth in the catacombs underneath this town, which actually wasn't shot in Germany. It was shot in some province of Spain and in some little, like, small city. I think it was up in the north that actually had some, like, German-looking architecture so they could more easily sell it as, again, he couldn't take place in Spain. But, but I mean, to the point where the mad scientist isn't just, like, trying to be Frankenstein. He starts talking about the fucking Necronomicon. And this is like in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Where it's like suddenly they're introducing fucking Lovecraft elements in a time before Lovecraft was well known in pop culture again, right? So you had Dunwich Horror came out a couple of years earlier, this in 1970. You had Haunted Palace in 1963, but that was called a Poe movie because AIP didn't think anyone knew who Lovecraft was. Die Monster Die in 1965 with Nick Adams, but that wasn't even really marketed as Lovecraft. It was just, here's a monster, Yeah. So, and there'd been a few Night Gallery episodes, and so Arkham House Publishing had started reprinting his stuff by this point, so, like, people were beginning to remember who he was, but it wasn't to the point where if you said Necronomicon in a movie, everyone does that DiCaprio point at the screen gif from, what I mean. So that was a really weird choice to put that in there so offhandedly at the end. And then you get the monster, the primordial, charging out of its cave, and it looks like the thing from the Oily Maniac. And it's just, God, this movie is great. And those dead guys, the Iron Maiden guy and the Acid Face guy, and they're tied together. You see them later. They stumble around and scare Maria Pershey. I like to think that, like, Goto tied them together. It was like, it'll be easier to drag these corpses out of here if I can just pull them out on this rope rather than having to move two bodies. But then he's like got busy and had something else to do. And the guy with the acid face who was still alive just woke up with his face melted off, tied to his dead, decomposing buddy, and his brain just broke because of the horror of his situation. And so he's just stumbling around these catacombs, carrying his dead friend tied to his back. It's so fucked up. But
awesome.
you were saying that Naschy, you kind of fell off acting-wise in your estimation. He actually won an acting award for this movie.
Nice.
At the International Film Festival of Paris. He met Peter Cushing and Terence Fisher there, and Fisher approached him about doing an updated Jekyll and Hyde movie for Hammer. But that fell through and never happened. So that might have been some of his impetus for writing.
Yeah.
Dr. Jekyll. No, I can't remember which one came first. It's fun. Like all three of the movies we're talking about tonight were made like in the same year.
Yeah. His output is insane.
I loved going through his IMDb and just looking at all the titles. Just such great
Titles
fucking titles,
alone
man.
are amazing. Yeah. Absolutely. Did you have any?
This movie is just. I was just going to say, it pays off to watch this one over and over because you'll just notice bad, like little things. Like, holy shit, what is that? Like, it just, it's one of those movies that rewards multiple watchings. So, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to see if Tad had any trivia for this one.
Yeah, I have a little bit more insight onto what we talked about with the rats. In the most talked about scene, Paul Naschy was set upon by real rats. He had to be inoculated against possible rabies. It was also Maria Elena Apon and not a mannequin lying on a slab with the rodents nestling and nibbling all over her. Some of the rats were burned alive on camera. So not only was Paul getting bit, but she was too. And then this is interesting. Permission was given to use a real corpse for the head severing scene, but Paul Naschy took 2 swigs of whiskey because he couldn't get past the first cut into the throat. A dummy head was used thereafter.
Damn you. See, I was going to read that passage out of his autobiography about that.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, we'll hear the full story.
From his
Well,
words.
I mean, it's basically just that. The day we had to shoot the scene where Goto cuts the head off a corpse, the body we were given was due to be dissected shortly, and the man in charge intimated that we could do with it as we liked. I knocked back 2 whiskeys and picked up the knife. However, once I'd started the business, I couldn't get past the first cut, so a death mask was taken and a wax head was made, which is what actually appeared in the film. Wow. So yeah, he couldn't
for the
couldn't
best.
quite bring himself to defile a cadaver.
It's the way it bleeds coming off there,
But
too.
fuck them rats.
It's
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, rats. All right, awesome. So, Brian, so we are all now Naschy experts. We've watched 4 out of 500 films. Can you maybe rattle off a couple other recommendations?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you want some more great Daninsky ones, I highly recommend Werewolf vs. the Vampire Women, Werewolf and the Yeti, aka Night of the Howling Beast, and Beast and the Magic Sword, which is where he goes to Japan and fights samurais. And not only samurais, he fights a tiger in full werewolf makeup.
Oh, God
and it's not a sad fat zoo tiger on drugs. It is a real fighting trim, fuck you up tiger. And when he was asked in an interview, how did you do that scene? He said, we just fed it a lot and hoped it was full.
Oh, shit.
Oh, my.
You mean we could have watched that one? Oh, man, because I almost chose that one. Damn it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a decent print outside the Mondo Macabro Blu-ray, but again, I absolutely cannot recommend enough picking up anything of his that comes out on Blu-ray. Buy it.
Yeah.
A lot of them have great commentaries with Rod and Troy from the Naschy cast, and even if you don't care about the extras, it's worth just having good quality prints of these. And the 2 box sets that Shout Factory put out frequently go on sale for like $30. 5 movies, a set for like $30 or $40. Come on, it's absolutely worth it. If you're looking for non-werewolf stuff, there's actually a sequel to Horror Rises from the Tomb called Panic Beats, which is an interesting one. Not nearly as good as Horror Rises from the Tomb, but it's cool. Il Commandante, The Traveler, which was released here as The Devil Incarnate, that's almost more like a Decameron or a Canterbury Tales type of thing, where it's like a medieval morality play type of deal. That might actually be his best movie. That's one he directed. It's not really a horror film, but just as a great piece of art. That's really, really good. Night of the Executioner is a fun one. That's basically his death wish.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask Brian, big picture, like, why Paul Naschy? Why do you got a crush on this dude?
Well,
what is it about?
I mean, like I said before, he's like the original Monster Kid made good. You know, he's kind of what we all wish we could have done when we saw our first horror movie or monster movie as a kid and thought, God, that looks like fun.
I want to burn some rats.
Well, okay, that aside, but you know, like he did it. By God, he did it. And if there's a great documentary about him called "The Man Who Saw Frankenstein Cry," it's either on Tubi or YouTube, maybe both, but it's also included on the Vinegar Syndrome Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman disc. And it's really tough. I mean, he had a rough life. He had a very hard childhood, and he made all these movies. And as the film market kind of dried up and people sort of forgot about him, there was a period where he was very depressed. And there's a great movie about that one too, probably his most personal movie. It's called Howl of the Devil, about an aging horror actor who feels forgotten, right? But at the end of this documentary, and I absolutely just was in tears by the end of it, because he's one of those lucky people who spent his life making these movies, got to a point where he wondered if it was all worth it because no one cared. They were either dismissed as cheese or just not talked about at all, which, you know, who knows which of those two things is worse when you're a creator like that. But in the years before his death, he got to come to some horror conventions in the United States. Aww. Where he saw fans lined up out the doors to meet him and tell him how much they loved him and how much his movies meant to them. And so in the final years of his life, he got that validation. You know, he knew that it was all worth it, and that his art meant something to people, and that he was loved.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's good that he saw that before he died.
Yeah. Brian, I gotta ask you: is Inquisition any good?
Yeah, Inquisition's real good. It's kind of like, have you seen Mark of the Devil?
Oh yeah.
Or Witchfinder General. It's good. It's like a witch burner flick like that. Yeah.
I just picked it up from Goodwill, believe it or not.
What?
Blu-ray.
Whoa, really?
Blu-ray.
For $5. It's the Mondo Macabro one.
Yes, the Mondo Macabro
yes.
one. Yep.
Fuck yeah. That's a hell of a find.
Yeah, $5 freaking bucks. It was like, there was like a bunch of really cool stuff. They had there was a couple Arrow Blu-rays there, a couple of Vinegar Syndrome Blu-rays. I picked up Babyface. Have you heard of that? It
sounds familiar, but I'm not.
It's a 70s porn. And I'm like,
okay.
This is at Goodwill. Oh, I better buy it before somebody else does. And she throws a fit about buying porn at Goodwill. Anyway.
Cool.
Yeah. All right.
So, yeah.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was nervous. I knew you'd be on my side, but I was a little worried about Jason and Tad, and I'm glad this one turned out to where everyone more or less liked everything.
It's all right. You're cool.
I really, really hope this encouraged. Like, honestly, like I said, I think this might be the most excited I've been for any of our episodes, right? And I'm glad you guys liked them, and I really hope it encourages not just you, but all of our listeners to go out and check out some more Paul Naschy movies, because just, God damn it, there's so much to love.
I plan to, and I'm definitely going to. And the thing is, for me, why it took me so long to finally, bite the bullet and start watching them is for the same reason Tad was nervous about the beginning of Horror Rises from the Tomb. Right. I assumed a lot of his films were period pieces like that. And
I mean, Inquisition is obviously it has to be. Jesus.
He loves
Waldemar Daninsky here. So Inquisition is Il Commandante is, but most of them aren't.
Yeah.
Most of them are at least partially set in modern times.
And I never really realized that, so that kind of helps me. Not the, I lose interest in some of those period films like
And
that.
Vengeance of the Mummy has some spectacular head crushing.
Soul
He did a mummy. He did them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, gang, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to finish off the show with our last two segments. But first, you're going to hear a promo for the hippest, most radical podcast network. It's the Prescribed Films Podcast Network.
Whoa, dude.
That's right. All the kids are twerking to it.
Yes.
The PFPN is home to so many great shows, such as Fans of the Dead. Fans of the Dead is a podcast where they simply just talk about their favorite genre of movies. With each movie they discuss, they will give it a brain rating.
Damn you for making me imagine you twerking. I hate that. I hate you.
Oh, God damn it. I almost spit beer all over my laptop.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Maybe that'll be a Patreon video.
Okay.
Check out Fans of the Dead and all the other shows at thepfpn.com. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
You guys couldn't see it during the break, but he was standing up trying. He was really, he was trying to
Trying or succeeding?
Oh, God.
All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. And it's been a while. We've been talking, Paul Naschy. But now we want to hear from you guys, the listeners. Here's Jason with shout-outs.
It's time for shout-outs! 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 Shout-outs!
Well, we asked, what are your favorite Paul Naschy movies? And guys, I hate to say, not a lot. We got one. I'll just pick the best one. That's it. That's what I'll do today. We'll pick the best one comment. And that's from Attacker Tim Lennerer. Woo! He said, I've only seen House of Psychotic Women and that one where Waldemar Daninsky fights a Yeti in an amazingly Spanish-looking Himalayan forest. I dug the Yeti fighting one more. Sounds pretty kick-ass.
Yeah.
That's Godzilla, you don't even have an excuse. I'm calling you out right now because I sent you one of these damn things.
Oh. We're going to hear from them in a minute, but let's, we had some last-minute voicemail sent in, so let's see what Bill has to say.
Hey, everybody. Attacker Bill here. I'm supposed to be calling about my favorite Paul Nasty Mustachy? Yeah, I don't fucking know who that guy is. I guess I gotta wait for the movies to come out. Anyway, I just want to address something.
These movies are all out on Blu-ray.
I don't know who said this was okay, but apparently Brian and Rod are bathing together now. And don't get me wrong, there's parts of everybody's body they can't reach. I'm just wondering, like, what in the absolute great outdoors, greased up, stripped down, dirty ass, rotten, someone has to... God damn it! Sorry. What happened to the show? Can we go back to the colors? I'm sorry. I'm just worried. You know there's a bearskin rug in that bathroom that those boys just greased all up. Anyway,
Greasy
yeah,
bearskin.
I guess, Paul Mustache on this AOTKP.
Bill,
I need a fucking beer.
You're going to get it.
Thanks, Bill. I'm sorry Brian's after you now, too. Oh, my gosh. He's not wrong.
There will be fisticuffs at Halloween-a-Palooza, Bill.
It's funny, because right before we hit record, we're like, are these shout-outs just not about the movies anymore? What's going on? But you guessed it. That's right. Back with another installment. of whatever fucking show they're. Anyway,
should we start charging them for advertising at this point?
I don't know. They're on the network now, so I don't know if we can. We'll text our lawyers while this is playing. But here's another voicemail.
Hey everybody, Attacker Brian here, and now that we've cleaned up after our bubble bath and our Tubi night of movies, Rod and I are searching the bathrooms of Missouri. Because there's a legend of a comedian.
Yeah, he's funny.
He calls from bathrooms in Missouri. And the legend says he looks like a werewolf in the Amazon?
Sounds about right to me.
And he calls, and you can't understand him. He's like a cryptid, kind of.
If he calls from bathrooms, does that make
Sometimes
him a
on a full
craptid?
moon that you'd even hear him quote that he's just trying to pass this beast, this howling beast in the night.
You know, like one of those mysteries on Monster Island, like a Scooby-Doo movie or something like that. Maybe it sounds like maybe like a Spanish film.
Yeah, it sounds like what's that one that Brian Clark always brings up?
I don't know.
Is that Paul Newman?
Oh, he's got good dressing.
Yeah,
You had some Paul Newman dressing earlier, right, with lunch?
Yeah,
kill all
my,
you motherfuckers.
My damn enchiladas.
Oh yeah, that's one reason we had to stop in the bathroom is because Rod had enchiladas for lunch, and he's gonna have to get rid of those.
Wait a minute, sorry. Okay, I'm better now. I'm sorry.
Well, now it smells like someone died in here, but it wasn't me. It was Rod. But yeah, the legend is if you put out a cheesecake in a bathroom in Missouri, you'll hear a creature, and it's kind of garbled sound.
Yeah.
It's like it's speaking, but you can't understand it.
But you know it's the creature.
But yeah, we're looking for this creature, and we're going to head to the hotel soon and probably watch some Spanish horror films or something like that, and have some Paul Newman dressing.
Maybe some cheesecake of our own.
Oh, yeah. We got half a cheesecake left. We put some under that box with a stick and a string, so we'll see what we catch. But, yeah, if you see the infamous cryptid, yeah, I don't know. There's so many damn cryptids, I don't know. It's not the goat of Louisville, Kentucky. I know it's not that one. But, yeah, you guys can come to the hotel.
You might be like a half funny guy and then half, what did they cut down in Missouri?
But, yeah, you guys are more than welcome to come back to the hotel. We got some cheesecake. We'll throw on some Spanish horror films.
By that guy, what was his name? Paul something, I don't know.
Yeah, I still think we should just stick with Paul Newman. Yeah, we'll catch you on the road next time. Maybe we'll catch a monster.
We'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, thank you to Tim for taking the assignment seriously, and to the rest of you, sleep with one eye open.
Oh my gosh, what is happening?
Every time I heard
They're
the
like-
flush, I was hoping it was over, but then it wasn't.
Nope.
It's like two morning radio hosts.
Yeah.
Like
The Morning Zoo with Rod and Godson. All right. Well, if anyone else would like to leave a voicemail, anyone, please.
I think our inbox is full. Sorry, guys.
If you
This
want.
is like the monkey's paw thing, right? Like where you asking for voicemails forever, and then the monkey's paw flipped you the bird, and
Yeah, now we can't stop it. But if you wanted to, you can call us at 415-952-6857 or 415-95-AOTKP. Leave us that voicemail. Get your voice on the show. We obviously play everything. And that is shout-outs.
your blood will boil, and your flesh will crawl. No one can escape the vampires, and no one can run from the werewolf. If your heart can take it, see the most sensational fight to the finish ever filmed. Insane Mike versus Good Taste. Before the spawn of Satan drags you to hell, see Insane's Picks.
For this Insane's Picks, we are going down under for a film that has punks, cars, and a drive-in theater concentration camp. We're going to be
where
talking.
this is going.
Yep, we're talking 1988's Dead End Drive-In. Now, it's not a horror movie, but still is held high in the Insane Picks vaults. In this dystopian future Australia, Jimmy and his girlfriend go to the drive-in movies only to discover that they are now become trapped in the drive-in, which has become a concentration camp for delinquent youths and refugees. This is directed by Brian Trenchard Smith, Australian filmmaker. He's known for The Man from Hong Kong, BMX Bandits, one of my favorites, Turkey Shoot, and Stunt Rock. Now, Turkey Shoot, I'm mentioning that because it plays at the drive-in within this movie, and you usually see that with some directors as just shameless plug of their stuff, but this was kind of more of Brian's middle finger to the MPAA, because there's a scene from Turkey Shoot that plays on the screen that the MPAA made him cut of a body exploding, and so to get him back, he put it on the theater screen in this film. Now, I'm a sucker for films that take place at like movie theaters and drive-ins and stuff like that, so I really dug this film. It's got a large scope on such a low budget, like a lot of like Ozploitation films do, I feel like. The location and the set design and the production value of the drive-in, at the drive-in itself, it's just really cool. It's got a very like, end of the world kind of look to it, but still with like a lot of, punk wear and a lot of cool aesthetics. It also is big celebration of car culture in this film. So I have the Arrow Blu-ray of this with great commentary by Brian Trenchard Smith. So I would highly, highly recommend everybody check out Dead End Drive-In from 1988.
Okay,
That's
fine, I
good.
will.
Good. And that concludes another episode of Attack of the Killer podcast. Thank everybody for listening. You can find us all over the internets. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads. Also, don't forget, again, come see us on the 31st at the Capitol Theater in Burlington for a showing of the 1988 film The Blob, followed with a live podcast with us, Attack of the Killer podcast, and I Like It Spooky, and Brett and Tony with Ash and Abe. So again, that's Capitol Theater on the 31st, 7 p.m., $5, right, Dad?
Yep, $5, and doing a podcast, and if we have any energy afterwards, we can hang out after too, so come for fun and hangs.
Absolutely. So thanks again, everybody, for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on Attack of the Killer podcast.
Oh no, could this be the end of? Attack of the Killer!